Hello everybody, I'm Diane and this is the Creative Bohemian. Today I'm going to continue with my art studio portion of my room box, my Bohemian art studio room box. And what I have here is, it's just a what is called an artist tabaret, and I just did a very simple version of it. I just did basically a wood box, false door fronts, drawer front, and on top is where all the art supplies will go. And that just sits next to the easel so that the artist has some place to put all their supplies. But what I'm going to do today is I am going to make the supplies themselves so that we have everything we need to paint a picture in our miniature room box. Now I had made these paintbrushes previously, and I was trying all different ways. I watched a few videos of some very talented miniaturists, but I did create this one, which has some actual fabric used for a brush, and I do like it. It's good for a large brush that you would use for a canvas that you would use to do a lot of blocking in. But for the finer brushes, I decided to just carve them right out of the toothpicks that I have on hand. So what I'll do today is I'm going to show you how I did that. Now, to make the paintbrushes, I have two different kinds of toothpicks that I'm going to carve from. I have these more decorative ones. I don't know if you can see that. They have a little bit of carving, like wood turning on the end, which I like this part here. This part here makes a really good ferrule. And then I would carve out of this part a very fine tipped brush. Then you have your standard but very thin toothpick. And for this, besides making pencils, which is very easy to do, you just color the tip and color the back part, and you've got a pencil. But for a really fine paintbrush, you would carve the end, carve out your own ferrule, and then the rest of the paintbrush. So I'll go ahead and just do it, and you'll see what I mean. I'll start first with the one that already has the turning in it, but obviously this paintbrush is long. It's too long. So I'm going to cut it to about here, and then I'm going to sand the back of it to give it more of a point, like an actual paintbrush. As you can see, something more to this shape where it tapers a little bit more than it is up here. But to keep it in proportion, I'm going to cut it at 1 1/4. You have the one side and you have this side, and now this regular side is going to be the perfect size for a pencil. And I'll show you really quick how I did that. Take a very fine brush. The finer the better. And I'm going to make this, I'll just paint it red. And then I would just take this, dip it in. Right now I'm going to dip it in black, but if you want it to really be authentic, you would dip it into a dark gray for graphite, a more graphite color. And there you go. Let's get back to carving out a paintbrush. Now this is the regular toothpick again. And this one I'm going to cut, I would say, probably 1¼ inches. You could cut it with a scissor, but the cut usually isn't as clean. And just file this down. Okay, so you have a small piece. This is going to be your brush, or you can switch it actually. This is going to be your brush size because I want to make a very fine brush. Then we'll carve in the ferrule, and so I'm going to mark it where the start of it goes and the end of it goes. I know it's very hard to see, but once you paint it, it might be much easier to see the differences. I'm going to do the end, and I'm going to make it a black brush. That is your brush. Okay, now I'm going to do the handle in red. Now the only silver paint I have, or metallic silver paint I have, is this Model Train Tester's paint. So this is what I'm going to use to paint the metal part of the brush that holds down on a real brush what's called a ferrule. And I'm using a different brush because this is an oil-based paint. And there you go. Now using the toothpick that already has somewhat of a ferrule, the only thing I'm going to do is carve and taper this very end part into a tiny, tiny brush. Just going to cut. Until it's tapered. Now, if you see that, now it's smaller than this part. And to smooth it out so it's like a brush, I'm going to just take that one part, sand it with fine sandpaper, and if you want it to be even finer, you just keep sanding until it's the shape you want it. I'm going to sand it until it comes to somewhat of a point. Going to give it a color, this color. So I'm going to mix a tiny bit of red into there, because it's between yellow, it's a little bit of an orange color. So that's the color I'm going to go for. And we'll use toothpick. And I'm going to give it a black handle. Now I'm going to paint the ferrule on this one. The next thing that I made was this very tiny tube of paint. And this was just another use of the top of this carved, turned toothpick. So I used it for the cap, as you can see. So what I do is I paint the top black, I paint this part silver, and then I cut it there, and the rest of it is metal, wrapped metal. What this is, it's the metal from a wax tea light. So I would just cut this and wrap it around, and I'll show you how I did that. First, I'm going to paint it. I'm going to give it a black cap. And I did not come up with this idea. I did see another miniaturist on YouTube. I believe it was Tina. I'm not sure. So actually, what I'll do is I'll leave the link to her miniature YouTube channel in the description below so that you can go find her and see how she did it. And then I'm going to do partial of this part silver. And then once I let that dry, I'll cut it down, and then I will wrap the greater part of this with the metal from the tea light. Now, I like the idea of having tubes that are bent as if they're being used. So the less of the wood I have, the easier it is for me to bend the tube and make it look like it's a tube being used. Okay, now in order to create the body, I'm going to cut the tube around there. Again, keep this for later. So that's what you're left with. And now we're going to wrap this lower half where the silver is in a piece of metal from the tea light. Make it a fairly long piece because you're never sure how much you're going to need. Now I fold this, fold your tube as tight as you can make it, knowing that you have to squeeze in the top of the toothpick. With some super glue. Stick the top in here. Squeeze it all in. Put too much glue because then you're gonna have to, as I'm doing, kind of like push it down so you can still see the ends. And now this is what you have. I think it's a little too long. You are gonna fold over the end, but you shouldn't need that much, so I'm gonna make it about 1/16 of an inch longer. Then I'm gonna take the end of this and with my tweezer, I'm gonna fold it over, fold over the end like a real tube. There we go. Whoop. So there you go. It's another tube. There's two of them. And if you really want to shape it like it's been used, just bend it, because we all do squeeze the life out of our tubes to get the last of the paint out. If you want to put a label on it, you can do that. You would do that probably first, but I would do a couple of practice ones first, like I'm doing. This is only my second time trying this, but I was happy with how it worked out. So I'm going to go ahead and make quite a few of them, and maybe I'll put some paint on it to designate the color. Now I have this one that I created where I put red at the top to look like an open tube. So I'm going to see how that works. And that's a little tube with some paint coming out, with two other tubes with their caps still on. And this is the cap to that tube. Pretty proud of myself since I'm half blind. And that's your tubes of paint.